Alexander Frost didn't believe in second chances. As CEO of Frost Industries, he'd built his empire on precision, efficiency, and an unwavering intolerance for incompetence. Which was why, at 8:47 a.m. on a Monday morning, he was seriously reconsidering his HR department's hiring choices. "Mr. Frost. Oh my goodness, I'm so sorry I'm late." The voice preceded its owner by several seconds, breathless, melodic, and far too cheerful for the 47th floor. Then she appeared, a whirlwind of disheveled dark hair, mismatched files, and what appeared to be coffee stains on her cream-colored blouse. His new secretary. "You're 13 minutes late, miss." He glanced at his watch with deliberate coldness. "Rivers. Jordan Rivers. And actually, I'm 17 minutes late, but who's counting?" She laughed, as if tardiness on one's first day was somehow endearing. "The elevator got stuck, and then I couldn't find which floor, and then I spilled coffee on myself, obviously, and—" She thrust out her hand for a handshake, nearly dropping the precarious stack of folders she carried. "I'm really excited to work with you." Alexander stared at her outstretched hand as if it might bite him. "Miss Rivers. In my office. Now." Her smile faltered for just a moment before rebounding with alarming resilience. "Right. Yes. Your office. Which is that way." She pointed in the completely wrong direction. "Behind me," he said through gritted teeth. "Oh. That makes so much more sense." By noon, Alexander had compiled a mental list of Jordan Rivers' offenses, reorganized his files by color instead of date, answered his phone with, "Frost Palace. How may I help you?" Frost Palace. Brought him coffee with cream and sugar when he drank it black. Hummed while she worked. Smiled at him every time their eyes met. That last one was perhaps the most egregious. Didn't she understand the atmosphere here? This was Frost Industries. People trembled when he walked by. His last 3 secretaries had quit via email, too intimidated to face him in person. But Jordan Rivers? She'd bounced back from his icy dismissal of her coffee with a cheerful, "No problem. I'll remember for tomorrow." As if there would be a tomorrow. "Miss Rivers," he called through his open door. She appeared instantly, notepad in hand, pen tucked behind her ear. "Yes, sir." "The Morrison contract. Where is it?" "Oh, the purple folder. I don't file by color." "You do now." She beamed. "It's much more fun, and honestly, I think your old system was a little, how do I put this nicely, soul-crushingly boring." Alexander felt his eye twitch. No one spoke to him like this. "The Morrison contract is due by end of business today." "Then it's a good thing it's in the purple folder on your desk." She winked, and disappeared back to her station. He looked down. There, on the corner of his pristine desk, sat a purple folder he hadn't noticed. He opened it. The Morrison contract, perfectly organized, with color-coded tabs marking each section. It was, actually, more efficient than his previous system. Damn. 3 weeks later, Alexander's office had transformed in subtle ways. There was now a small succulent on the corner of his desk. "Plants reduce stress, Mr. Frost." His coffee appeared every morning at exactly 7:55 a.m., black, the perfect temperature. And his meetings ran more smoothly than they had in years, because Jordan had somehow memorized the personalities and preferences of every single client. "Mr. Davidson likes to talk about his daughter's soccer games before business," she'd whispered before one meeting. "And Mrs. Chen prefers tea to coffee. Earl Grey, specifically." He'd closed deals he'd been working on for months. But it was the little things that unsettled him most. The way she'd noticed he rubbed his temples when he had a headache and started keeping ibuprofen in her desk. The way she'd somehow discovered his favorite lunch order and had it delivered on particularly stressful days. The way she defended him to a rude client, her sunny demeanor turning surprisingly fierce. "Mr. Frost is the most dedicated CEO I've ever worked with," she'd said coolly. "If you can't appreciate his time and expertise, perhaps you should take your business elsewhere." The client had apologized. Alexander had stood in his doorway, stunned. That evening, as she packed up to leave, he found himself calling out to her. "Miss Rivers. Jordan, please. We've been over this." She smiled, slinging her bag over her shoulder. Jordan. The name felt strange on his tongue. Intimate. Thank you. For today. The Davidson meeting. Her smile could have powered the entire building. You're welcome, Mr. Frost. Alexander, he said quietly. She blinked. What? If I'm calling you Jordan, you should call me Alexander. Her smile softened into something that made his chest feel tight. Okay. Alexander. She left, and he stood alone in his office, wondering when exactly the irritation had transformed into something else entirely. It happened on a Thursday. Jordan didn't come to work. Alexander checked his watch at 7:56 a.m. when his coffee didn't appear. By 8:15, he'd called her desk 3 times. At 8:30, he did something he'd never done before. He called his secretary's personal number. Hello. Her voice was hoarse, weak. Jordan. His hand tightened on the phone. Are you ill? Just a cold. I'm fine. I'll be in this afternoon. You will not. The words came out harder than he intended. He softened his tone. You'll rest. That's an order. But your meetings will be rescheduled. The Yamamoto contract can wait. A pause. Then, quietly, okay. He should have hung up. Should have gotten back to work. Instead, he heard himself asking, Have you eaten? I'm not really hungry. That wasn't the question. A weak laugh. No. I haven't eaten. I'll have something sent over. Alexander, you don't have to. I'll have something sent over, he repeated. And Jordan. Yes. Get some rest. After he hung up, he sat at his desk, staring at his empty coffee cup. The office felt wrong without her humming. The silence felt oppressive without her cheerful greetings. He'd spent weeks being irritated by her presence. Now, one day without it, and he was miserable. Oh no! The realization hit him like a freight train. He'd fallen for his secretary. His impossibly optimistic, chronically disorganized, perpetually cheerful secretary who had somehow become the best part of his everyday. Alexander Frost, the man who didn't believe in second chances, wanted nothing more than a chance with her. He grabbed his coat. Jordan opened her apartment door to find Alexander Frost standing in the hallway, holding a bag from the Italian restaurant 3 blocks away and looking thoroughly uncomfortable. You came, she said, stunned. You're sick. You sent enough soup to feed a small army. You didn't have to come personally. I know. He shifted his weight, uncharacteristically uncertain. May I come in? She stepped aside, hyper-aware that she was wearing pajamas with cartoon penguins on them and probably looked like death warmed over. Her small apartment was nothing like his sleek office, all warm colors and mismatched furniture and photos covering every surface. He looked absurdly out of place, the 6'3" business mogul in his $1,000 suit. Sit, she said, pointing to the couch. I'll get plates. Jordan. His hand caught her wrist, gentle but insistent. Sit. I'll handle it. She watched, bemused, as Alexander Frost navigated her tiny kitchen, finding bowls and spoons, heating up the soup he'd brought. He moved with the same efficient grace he brought to everything, but there was a tenderness in the way he arranged everything on a tray, the way he brought it to her. Eat, he commanded softly. She obeyed, if only because the soup smelled amazing. They ate in silence, and she couldn't help but notice he'd brought her favorite. How had he known? You remembered, she said. You mentioned it. 3 weeks ago. You said your grandmother used to make this. You were listening. I always listened to you. He set down his bowl. Even when I pretended I wasn't. Even when I acted like you were the bane of my existence. Were. She raised an eyebrow, her heart starting to pound. Past tense. Jordan. He turned to face her fully, and there was something in his eyes she'd never seen before. Vulnerability. Fear. You drove me insane at first. I know. I'm sorry. Let me finish. He took a breath. You drove me insane because you were everything I wasn't. Warm. Open. Genuinely kind. You walked into my cold, controlled world and brought sunshine with you. And I hated it because... He paused. Because I didn't know how to exist in sunshine anymore. I've been in the ice so long. She couldn't breathe. But then you stayed. Despite my rudeness. Despite my coldness. You stayed, and you smiled at me, and you learned my coffee order, and you defended me, and you made me laugh for the first time in years. His hand found hers. And today, when you weren't there, I realized that somewhere along the way, you didn't just thaw the ice. You melted it completely. Alexander. I'm in love with you, he said simply. I'm completely, impossibly in love with you. And I understand if this is unwelcome, if I've made you uncomfortable, if you want to quit. She kissed him. It was clumsy and probably tasted like soup, and she was definitely getting him sick, but she didn't care. His arms came around her immediately, pulling her close, and when they finally broke apart, he was smiling, really smiling, for the first time since she'd met him. I fell for you on day one, she admitted. When you were terrifying and cold, and you looked at me like I was the worst thing that had ever happened to you. I thought, this man needs someone to teach him how to smile again. And now I think you just needed someone to love you enough to see past the ice. He kissed her again, softer this time, reverent. I don't deserve you. Good thing I'm terrible at following logical career advice. She grinned. My interview guide explicitly said not to fall for the boss. How's that working out for you? Terribly. She cuddled into his side. I'm absolutely fired for this, aren't I? Probably. His arm tightened around her. But I know a CEO who's hiring. He's a bit cold, but his girlfriend is working on that. Girlfriend. If she'll have me. Jordan looked up at the man who'd been all ice and edges, now warm and soft and hers. I suppose I could pencil you into my schedule. How generous. I am a very good secretary. You're a terrible secretary, he said, pressing a kiss to her forehead. You reorganized my entire filing system, you're late more often than not, and you once answered my phone with Frost Palace. But you're the best thing that's ever happened to me. Outside, the city glittered in the twilight. Inside, curled up together on her worn couch, Alexander Frost finally learned what it meant to come in from the cold. Mr. Frost, your 3 p.m. is here. Alexander looked up from his desk to find Jordan standing in his doorway, professional and poised in a way she'd finally mastered, mostly. Her shirt was still a little wrinkled, and her hair was escaping from its bun, and she was wearing mismatched earrings. She was perfect. Thank you, Miss Rivers. He kept his tone strictly professional, even as his eyes sparkled. And remind me what I have this evening. Dinner reservations at Marcello's at 7. She consulted her tablet, fighting a smile. And after that, you're scheduled to go home with your girlfriend and watch that terrible reality show she loves. Sounds awful. You love it. I love you. Mr. Frost, she said primly, even as she blushed. This is highly unprofessional. Then I suppose it's good that I'm the CEO. He stood, crossing to her. And that HR has already processed the transfer. Transfer. She tilted her head. As of Monday, you'll be my director of client relations. Rebecca starts as my new secretary tomorrow. He pulled her close. Can't have people saying I'm showing favoritism to my secretary. But you can show favoritism to your director of client relations? Absolutely. It's in the employee handbook. He kissed her softly. Page 47. She laughed against his lips. There's nothing on page 47. Then I'll have to write it in. Clause 1. The CEO is absolutely, hopelessly in love with Jordan Rivers, and everyone should get used to it. That's a terrible clause. Do you have a better suggestion? She pretended to think. How about, Alexander Frost is the luckiest man alive. Perfect. I'll have it implemented immediately. His 3 p.m. could wait. Everything could wait. Because for the first time in his life, Alexander Frost had found something more important than business. He'd found home. The end.